Welcome, Mzansi. Today's show is about equality, humanity, and to remind us that we are one. We are joined in a very exclusive interview by the son of the former state president, Duduzane Zuma. My name is Denver Naika. You're watching The Get Real Show only on GlowTV.
Hello. How are you doing? You are watching The Get Real Show on GlowTV with my brother, my homie, the one and only Denver Naika. Tune in. It's gonna be lit.
Hi, Mr. Zuma. Welcome to The Get Real Show.
Thank you very much, Mr. Naika. Pleasure to be here on GlowTV. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Okay.
Greeting to your viewers.
I think the humble, there's no words to describe how thankful we are for you to be making time for joining us on the show. I know you're quite a busy man and you have certainly made time to join us here today.
I appreciate your time and thank you very much for this opportunity.
Okay, so let's get to know you. You are a family man, very family orientated, and we would like to know the man that is able to juggle all at once and still make time for his family.
No, I think, look, we all have our family dynamics. I myself, for sure, have got a family dynamic. There's always times where things may be busy. There's times where things may not be busy. And I think it's about balancing it out. It's not easy, of course. I'm just juggling the work-related stuff as well as the personal stuff. But it's something that you learn as you go along to deal with. There are times where I am not available for family stuff. But like anyone else, you know, we're out there, we're putting in work, and one day the family will understand what it is that we were doing.
And your wife, I mean, how does she handle the fact that you most of the time out and in, and sort of the kids as well? Do they understand that you have a very busy schedule?
I think the kids are still pretty young. They see me coming in and out, and I don't think they're at a point in their development where they'll understand what busy is and what busy is not. But from the wife's side, I think she does take a lot of pressure. Not easy for anybody being in this sort of position. But it's something that one day she'll understand as well. It's a life that has chosen us, not the other way around. And it's something that we need to deal with through the good and the bad.
So when you're not so busy and not so hectic, what do you do in your free time? If there is any free time?
No, there's free time, and we all try to make free time.
Yeah.
And I'm certainly one of those people. So I enjoy trying to keep as active as I can. I enjoy walking. I try to do my 10,000 steps a day. That hasn't happened much because of the busyness. But otherwise, we link up, we play soccer with the fellas, we sit, we take it easy. I think the downtime is spent more on just having a chill time and having just normal guy conversation.
Your social media, you do have a very large following. How do you use your platform to inspire those that follow you?
Mr. Naika, I think firstly there's a massive misconception that's out there, and I'm glad that you raised that. I'm not on social media at all. Not on any social media platforms, not Facebook, not Instagram, Twitter, WeChat, and whatever else is out there. And this is something that I've spoken about on numerous occasions, and I'll speak about it now as well, especially with the numerous following of this fake/parody Twitter account. The first time I came across it was a few years ago, and I tried dealing with it by reporting it and that sort of stuff. But I face challenges because I'm not on social media, and there's certain ways to handle it. You report it, gets shut down, another day there'll be a mushrooming of another few accounts because there are few of them. Or you actively get onto social media to get your verification, the blue tick, which I chose not to do because I chose not to be on social media for now. As the time comes, I've got the right to change my mind, but as it stands, I'm not on social media on any platform, in any shape, way, form.
Okay, so you've pointed out a very valid point that you're not on any social media platforms.
Yes.
And you also did mention that you do report it if these notification does come to your attention. So how do you try to maneuver certain, I would say, topics that arises around your name, knowing the fact that there is someone out there that's portraying your life and living your life? Because social media now has become such a hit where You don't even have to see the person, you're just following them and you perceive that this person is that person.
Correct.
How would you handle that? Or how do you handle that?
I think from my side, Mr. Naika, I've generally been a private person, and that's why I chose not to be on social media. The way I see it is people also need to understand that these sorts of things happen. And when it comes to social media, when it comes to certain profile of people that may have a certain number of followers, there's verification mechanisms. And if you don't see the verification, it means that probably isn't the person. So I always plead to the public to just be a bit more careful and a bit more sensitive to people that may not be on social media and they're being portrayed as someone else. It happens to a lot of people, not just myself. And it's something that over time, I hope that the different platforms will get to a point where they make it easier for people to not be misrepresented. From my side, the way I deal with it is by having conversations, by having discussions such as these, given the opportunity, of course. And others are not interested in giving me the opportunity because they like pushing that certain narrative that I'm saying this, I'm doing that, and I get it. It comes with negativity, but over time we'll clear it up, and people will understand what the fact is. And besides that, it's just there are people that are known to me, that are friendly to me, that we will speak, and if there's certain messaging that needs to go out and they feel like they want to push it, then they'll do so in relation to whatever topics are going on at the moment, not necessarily around my name.
Okay, so you've again pointed out something that I need to validate. On Instagram, you have a following of over close to, I think, about 40 to 45,000 followers. And there would be viewers now watching the show to indicate and say, but who's loading those pictures? Those pictures resemble you, it is you. Where are they getting those pictures to actually load it if you are not on those social media platforms? But with that note, we're going to take a short break and we're going to return shortly. Welcome back. If you have just joined us, we are chatting to the son of the former state president, Duduzane Zuma. So during the break, we were chatting about social media presence, and you did make it very clear that you are not on any social media platforms. However, I did point out that if you are not on these platforms, there are very much recent pictures that are being loaded under your capacity.
Mr. Naika, I think that is quite an interesting question, and the reason I say that is I find myself being more and more in the public space, even though I try and be more and more private. And I think the reason for that is I meet a lot of people. I like being out. I like interacting with people, and that comes with certain discussions. It comes with certain opinions. It comes with pictures. So there's been a lot of there've been a lot of people that have taken the keen interest to take a photograph with me for whatever reason, good or bad. That is their content. They'll do whatever it is they want to do with it. But I have no problem when people show me love, and if my only way of showing people love back is taking a photograph, then I'll do it every day, all day, which is exactly what I do. So I think when it comes to recent pictures or images of me or video clips of me being out and about in some places, in most times it is coincidental, because I'll bump into people in a lobby, in a petrol station, wherever it is, in a car park, and people will say what they need to say, take a picture, and everyone keeps it moving. So I think the recent updated pictures is pictures that people may load themselves, and then somehow through the different hashtags and the stuff that's out there, they manage to get hold of the images. So I think that's what happens.
Okay, I think that's a very fair and justified answer, and I'm sure that will sort of ease many of the viewers' questions that they may have on that specific topic. So moving on to a very much serious note, there were many allegations, and these questions that we are about to pose to you are from various platforms. It's not affiliation to the channel or any of the staff members of GlowTV. It is extracted from the social media platforms. So our first question to you is, did you instigate the flare of the uproar of the looting that had taken place in KZN and Gauteng? Again, this is not an accusation. It's just a question that we would like to put out there to you, and not accusing you of anything, but I think we would like an answer, and many of the viewers out there would like that.
I appreciate that, Mr. Naika, and I think this is what this engagement is about. So I think that is definitely one of the frequently asked questions, and I have had the fortune of touching upon it on different round table discussions, but also in some other media engagements. And the response that I give is purely, I've had absolutely nothing to do with any of the instigating of anything, violence, looting, destruction of property, vandalism. And I think that's something that I've gone in length in speaking about, and I'll do so now again, given the opportunity, of course. So I categorically deny that statement in the form of a question.
Okay, so that's obviously something that's out. But there was a video that was circulating on social media. Again, it's an extract that we have looked at, and I'm sure most of the viewers again would want us to pose this question to you, where you have mentioned, please be careful and safe whilst looting. Was that statement from you?
Okay, so if you look at that clip, that's a 7-second clip.
Yes.
Out of an 11-minute clip.
Yeah.
11 and a half minutes. And the question that I pose to your viewers, and I pose to you, is have you seen the video in its entirety? Besides that 7 seconds.
I have not seen the video until the end. However, as I said, from the various extracts that
which is fine. I'm mentioning this, Mr. Naika, for the purpose of stating that there's certain statements, whether it's interviews, whether it's video clips, whether it's sound bites that have been attributed not just to myself, but this is how the media world works, where people will try and pin you to a certain statement. So in this case, that 7 seconds was a statement and was taken out of context that I'd made. And that video was put out, so the video in its entirety was put out on day 4, maybe of the unrest. And the reason I say that is that was my way of responding to the allegations, because I woke up and I saw that I was public enemy number 1 in relation to what was happening. I'm like, no, that's not true. And they mentioned everything that they needed to mention, social media account, the Twitter account, this video clip, and whatever else they put out there. And what I've responded, and I'll respond to again now, is that video covered a few points. The first one was me categorically denying so the first point was denouncing the looting and the violence and the unrest in its entirety and the vandalism and that sort of thing. The second point of that video was me stating that I had so my denial of what was happening in that moment in time. I was not part of it. I was not part of instigating it, and I stated the social media account being fake and everything else that was being accused of before that video clip. Then the next points preceding to that specific part is I was speaking about, and I call them armed militia. So just people who've armed up, standing around in the communities defending their properties, which I, by the way, did for some days and some nights during this period. I was on the ground doing exactly what everyone else was doing. So I'd said the people that are doing so have got the right. So the people protecting their communities, their homes, their businesses, their families have got the right to do so. As a matter of fact, I've been doing the same thing. And I was doing it in one of the communities that was heavily affected by it. Newlands East is where I was at. There was a ShopRite Checkers that hadn't been looted at that point, and a Shell garage and a pharmacy. And on the other side by Nandi Drive, we saw all the destruction. So we were part of teams that did shifts to protect that community. And that was the last amenity that was still standing, that could service the community. So I was part of defending what shouldn't be destroyed. The reason I'm raising those points is when people use that certain point, I said the people who are armed and are manning their positions should do so responsibly. And the reason I said responsibly is because it's easy for anyone to pull a trigger when you feel like you're under threat and everything. But not everyone is a competent gun user, gun owner, and people should be careful when they do so. And if we see what happened post that point, there's issues happening today on people that abused that position of having their constitutional right to defend what's theirs. And from there, I linked it to on the protester side. And the reason I said that is it's quick for us to say this is an us and a them situation. So my whole point was the reason the looting was happening was because people were the protesting. The reason why the protesting was happening was people were under duress and under pressure because of their unemployment status and just the history of poverty in the country. And that led to looting. So I said the people protesting and looting should do so responsibly. And why I said that is we have people that have been gunned down. Looters, they were looters, that's a fact. They were protesters, they were looters, but they've been gunned down. Now we have a situation in Phoenix that's trying to be resolved.
Okay, sir, we're just going to take a short break and we're going to return after this. Welcome back. If you've just joined us once again, we are chatting to the son of the former state president, Mr. Zuma. So during the break, we were chatting about the many communities that were affected. And, this was quite a sore point if you looked at it from all angles. Now, what was your take on this?
Yeah, so my take was very simple, and I think it links back to some of my commentary that's been taken out of context. There's been plenty affected areas. There's been plenty affected people, not just on the business front, not just on the personal front, because there's people that are, everyone's got the right to feel upset and angry and anxious about what's happened. It's not a nice situation for anybody. We've all taken pressure from it, and we've all endured some sort of issue from this situation, one way or another. So, as I always say, I denounce what happened. It's not right what happened. But you have to place yourself on the other side of the equation, which is people did this out of desperation. So why I'm saying that is that 7-second clip that people have been circulating. I was speaking specifically to this point. And the reason I was speaking to this point is after the fact, besides places in the Gauteng province and in KZN, we've seen unrest all the way from Cornubia to Newlands East to Inanda, parts of Pietermaritzburg, the port, and Springfield Park, and one of the affected areas is Phoenix, and that remains a talking point, and that's why I'm raising it, is we've seen what's happened there and the fallout of that situation. And all I was saying at that point, and this is what was misconstrued, is right now, as a matter of fact, that video clip speaks to what I was saying. Even though people were acting in an illegal manner, protesting, looting, and being labeled criminals because of taking what is not theirs, which is a fact. There's a court case. There are people who are looking for answers. The very same people that are dead. No one is talking about them being looters and criminals. Now all of a sudden, they are normal people that they need justice and everything. All I'm saying is the situation in the country is exactly that. There's a level of desperation and poverty that needs to be dealt with. We can't always shy away from dealing with it and labeling people poor people living in dire straits, criminals and looters. So that specific point I was speaking to is now all of a sudden, why isn't everyone speaking about a place like Phoenix where every day we're trying to see how that situation will be resolved? The dead people that have passed away, deceased, they're no more being labeled looters or criminals. The criminals are now the people that shot them. Am I right or am I wrong? They're being labeled the criminals. So if you look at the video, I touched upon that. As a matter of fact, I'm correct in saying what I said because that's exactly what's happening now. That's the point that I wanted to make, sir.
Okay, in a separate statement, you also said that if the government does not sort this out, it is something that is going to continue.
Yes, 100%. And that is, people always like pinning statements and ideas on someone as a negative point. Poverty has existed in this country way before most of us in this room were born, and they continue to exist. We know people living in poverty, so it's not something, well, I'll speak for myself, I don't know about you, Mr. Naika. But I've got family that lives in poverty. We're trying to help everyone that we can. They've been living in poverty. It's not their fault. It's an environment they find themselves in, and this is a situation where we should all band together to try and alleviate this issue. Not government alone. Blaming government, we can all do that every day, all day, and look what situation we find ourselves in. All I've ever said is everyone needs to come together to resolve this issue. Black, white, Indian, colored, whoever. That's all I've ever said. In my history of having any views, I've said this publicly, and I've been criticized for some of the comments, but I mean it, including lockdown, saying that lockdown was a terrible idea in the beginning. And you can go in history, I've said it. And I still stick to this point right now. And if you look at it, after everything was said and done, we're in a third wave, a fourth variant, and we're taken down from level 4 to level 3. How do you explain that? You know, and that's just, you know, thought-provoking questions that people like to ignore, but it's out there. So when it comes to me saying that this is going to persist, it is going to persist. It's not what I wish. I'm trying to be a part of the solution like everyone else, and everyone should come to the party. But if we think we're going to wish it away, come on, people, it's not going to happen. We are going to continue to see these things happening. And it's not me trying to instigate or trying to prophesize that it's going to happen. This is a situation we find ourselves in. People are desperate and they're going to do desperate things. So let's deal with the issues at hand and let's stop pointing fingers. I'm not to blame. We are all to blame, actually. We need to take this situation seriously as citizens of this country and help these people out of their desperation.
Okay, so I do hear you out, and you know, sitting with you now for quite some time, I can clearly see you're a man of integrity and loyalty that's coming across. But there has been various tweets from certain members in your family that sort of promotes, or should I say, promoted the looting. How would you answer that question? And we're not going to mention names.
Sure.
We're just going to say it in a very general statement.
I think from my side, there's processes that are underway. They've been underway for some time on investigations into the perpetrators. There was a list of 12 people, and just some people have been arrested, others have been released, and there's pending arrests. You know, I even saw something today. There was a complaint that was filed at a police station against myself and others. All I can do is speak on my own behalf. I cannot speak on behalf of anyone else, family member included. This is a show, give them a call, they can come sit and explain for themselves. But if the situation is that people are found wanting, they need to be brought to book. It's as simple as that, including myself.
I think that's a very fair answer, and I would safely say that each person would be accountable for their own actions.
Correct.
And you know, we can't hold you accountable for a tweet that was done by a family member. We just decided to pose that question to you because, you know, it is a fair question because you are in the family. We're going to take a short break. Welcome back. So during the break, we were chatting about the many communities that were faced with protest. Now, this was really, really affected on both sides. When we say I think from a South African point of view, I would strongly say that all lives matter.
Yes.
And how would you answer the fact that a specific community such as Phoenix that has been so affected?
I think it's once again, in order for us to understand what the issue is as it stands, we need to delve into the past. You know, people try and boil it down to events of the past month, which I completely disagree with. I think these are events of the past 100 years. If you look at the way the communities are set up, if you have minorities, if I may call it that, living around and in between the majority black people. So I'm talking about Indian people in whichever denomination. There's colored people, there's black people, and in some cases there's white people in certain communities. And how that historic town planning has actually led to some of these issues today. That's the one part. And the second part is how the races were classified during the apartheid era. So I don't like delving into apartheid per se as an issue, but I'm just saying the remnants of that are still relevant today. And I think this forms part of those issues where we have community members living amongst each other, but we find ourselves in a situation where there's still issues of disagreements along a racial divide. I think this is no secret, and we shouldn't shy away from it. I think this is an opportunity for us to talk about the real issues and to deal with those issues. Poverty is does not only have a black face, but it's got an Indian face, it's got a colored face, it's got a white face. So I'm not saying that black people are the only people faced with issues of poverty. And I think this is also quite prevalent in KZN. If you take a look around, you'll see these issues. So I think where we're at today, we need to take stock of the realities as they exist, and not pin it down to a moment in time. We need to understand that there are certain socioeconomic issues that have to be dealt with. There are certain racial issues that have to be dealt with, and talking about it is not going to help. We all understand what the issues are. We know there's been dialogue way before even this government was in place on how to create this hegemony. And we're at a place where we need to start showcasing it and not talking about it. So I think from people protesting and trying to make themselves heard, it's a constitutional right. But I mean, once again, you need to do it responsibly, can I say that? I've come under flag for saying that. But you need to protest and do it in a manner that is not pushing other people back. It's not done in a way that is, in a manner that is making other people feel uncomfortable, even though these are uncomfortable conversations to have and uncomfortable realities. But we need to take the bull by the horns and say, guys, you know what? This is where we're at. We need to avoid these issues. The only way to avoid them is to start dealing with them. We can't shy away from it, and we can't wish them away.
So what our viewers are not seeing, and which I am seeing at this point, you do have a very close-knit relationship amongst the Indian community, and I think you hold that very close to your heart. However, you also have a relationship with the cultures of other minorities. Yes. Let's touch on that.
Thank you very much for that question, Mr. Naika. I think I've been born into a situation, into an environment where I was taught and I got along with everybody, regardless of the race, religion, background, creed. And I still do that today. And my social circles and my business circles speak to that as well. And some of it is even public. So I've always held certain relationships with people from groupings that are not from my racial denomination, being black, very, very close and over a period of time. And I continue to develop new relationships. So in South Africa, we have the discussion of minorities and the majorities. Majority being the black people, populace-wise. And then the minorities being the Indian, and within the Indian you have the different denominations. Within the white you have the different denominations, colored as well. And I always say to people that the biggest minority in this country is actually the impoverished, unemployed, voiceless, black majority. They're the biggest minority in this country because everyone forgets about these guys. So I mention that because the way I've been living my life and the discussions I've been having with people from the Indian communities and even just the way we've been doing business over a period of time, not just in South Africa, but internationally as well. It's led us to understand each other a whole lot better. There's also relationships with the Jewish community, with the Afrikaans community, Greeks, Portuguese, anyone that's willing to have a conversation and to sit around the table and to discuss issues of how we move this country forward, are more than willing to do so. So that's something that I am doing, I've been doing. I'm actively a part of trying to get what we term the minorities back on board, because I feel like they're despondent. Minorities feel like they've been, and this is a fact, I mean, it's not something I'm making up. I've had discussions, and the minority groupings that exist feel like they've been ignored by the current situation, the current political landscape in the country. And I'm saying, guys, that's not the case. Let's have the discussions. I'm here. Let's move this thing forward. You're going to be part of it. All of you are going to be a part of it, as you have been historically. Because people say, there's a situation in the country, we want to leave, packing our bags, we don't feel safe and that sort of thing. Yes, we are going through a tough time. But what I'm saying to people is, we're going to overcome this, and it's only going to happen if we work together. I've been on record, and I'll be on record again saying, this country is not going to grow unless we work together. So if we think we're going to ignore black people, the country's not going to grow. If we think we're going to ignore and not work with white people, the country's not going to grow. If we think we're going to ignore and limit participation of Indian people, it's not going to grow. Unless we pull this thing together and stop having all this political rhetoric and narratives formed, then we're missing the point. There's an opportunity for us to learn from what has happened. It's an absolute disaster, unnecessary, unfortunate situation, but this is an opportunity for all of us to pick up the pieces and pick it up correctly.
As a young individual and born into this new democratic South Africa, do you think we have evolved?
I do believe there's been a certain level of evolution, but to a large degree, I think we've dropped the ball on a lot of aspects, just from even just a human element. I think understanding each other's backgrounds and each other's issues, and when interestingly enough, the minority discussion, which I'll touch upon, is also, for example, is the discussion of the Jewish and Muslim communities that exist within South Africa, but how that also ties down to what's happening in the Middle East regarding the Israeli and Palestinian issue, which is something that I've touched upon. We all have our opinions. I've ventured my opinion, and my opinion is purely an opinion that says you've got two parties that have never been able to get it right historically. And my commentary, and I think I've made some commentary over the recent few days. My commentary, once again, a lot of my commentary is taken out of context. It's misrepresented, it's misconstrued, and more importantly, it is interpreted in a certain direction depending on who wants to interpret it. So, for example, there's articles that come out. Some of them may be wholly reflective, others it's been twisted and that sort of thing. But all I ever say is, before people reach a conclusion, they need to go through the context of what's being said before making commentary. Because what happens is you read an article down the line that has taken an excerpt from this article that I was speaking about, for example. So in this case, it's a publication called The Jewish Report, where I was asked a whole host of questions, which I responded to. And one of the points I was asked about was the Israeli-Palestinian debacle that's been happening over a period of time. And all I'd said is, I think there's a new way of thinking, there's a new way of doing things. We all know what the situation is there. No one is running away from that. There have been humanitarian issues there. There have been atrocities that have happened over a period of time. And we're not shying away from that. All I said and all I'm saying is, and the context of the question was along the attitude of South African government to that issue at the moment. And I said the only way to deal with issues is by having a voice at the table. If you remove yourself from that situation, then you're not a voice on the table. Right? And if you have a policy that exists that is favorable to one party, whether it's right or wrong, that's open for debate, and that's for people to limit us from being a contributing factor in getting the warring parties to come to a consensus. And I said that in relation to our situation in South Africa. So we have our own situations in South Africa where we have the different groupings that exist. Born, bred, lived in South Africa. That's on the Jewish side, that's on the Islamic side, should I say. And I feel like if we can get our act together here, if we can pull together and show the rest of the world that if we can coexist here, we can do it elsewhere, regardless of what the issues are. We can get something, we can actually use that as a blueprint to resolving some of the matters that are occurring in the world. But if we are not able to deal with some of our issues, and the bigger issue here is, for example, I'm just speaking about from an ANC and even a South African government perspective on the Israeli-Palestinian issue, which is a sensitive topic, 100%. It's volatile. It's something that needs to be dealt with carefully. I fully agree with that. But if we are not able as South Africans, South Africans, regardless of which background you're from, to deal with the issues facing us, the issue in the Middle East is a land issue. I think that we're all clear on that. We have issues in South Africa of land expropriation without compensation. And we all have views. So whatever views we have, and we all need to be careful how we express these views, because whatever views we have affecting us here in South Africa should not be different from how it's handled in the Middle East. And these are the points that I was just trying to raise from a discussion perspective. So I've not taken any sides. All I've said is, wherever there's a resolution that can happen on a peaceful basis, I want to be part of that resolution. And the only way we'll get to that is if we are actively engaging, not taking ourselves off the table and limiting ourselves and being seen to have taken a side, regardless of the history of the situation. So I think that is something that's currently on the table, and I've been labeled a disgrace by some groupings, and I find that unfortunate because that's not the case. I think if people know me, they'll understand that I'm trying to get to a point where we can all work together more specifically from a South African perspective.
I think you've cleared the air with regards to answering all the questions that we have put out to you. And you know, what many out there have seen, and we also just like to just touch on it, is that you are currently rebuilding and restructuring this rebirth of this looting that we have experienced. It is something that has distracted all our lives. I mean, we've been through it, we've lived through it, and you know, it's affected each and every one of us. But you are currently working towards that with the many establishments, many communities, many religious factors. Again, going across all race factors. So there is no such a thing as you're only working with the black, or you're only working with the colored, or you're only working with the white. You are working with all races, and that is something we've noted. So, Mr. Zuma, our viewers would love for you to give them a motivational message and just share your thoughts, something motivational to our viewers. I think everyone needs that motivation just about now.
I think what I can say to the viewers, and it's something that I live by, is no one is running away anyway. And I don't think anyone should jump on a plane and disappear to elsewhere in the world. I think I've been living elsewhere in the world, and I think we all realize that South Africa is South Africa. There's no other place like it in the world, whichever part you're from. I'm back in South Africa. I'm here to be a part of the solution. I've never been a part of the problem. I'm here to be a part of the solution. And a lot of people find themselves in a situation where they don't have to do it. It's easy to pack the bags up and go and ply your trade elsewhere and retire elsewhere. But now is the time for everyone to pull together to get this thing back on track. So my words to the public, and I think there's a lot of information that's out there that is negative, generally, not even about myself. I think we all need to be we need to be a bit cautious on how we proceed. So there's a gentleman that mentioned, I won't mention his name because I'll make him famous, but he told me what is called the love doctrine, LOVE. So the L stands for listen, an acronym. So the L stands for listen, and we all need to listen to each other's stories, each other's backgrounds. We need to listen to the information that's out there, and we need to take it in. The first part we need to do is just absorb the information by listening. The second part is the O, and that's observing. So observing is scanning the environment, is having interactions, body language, observing the level of engagement, emotions, and that sort of thing. So it's something that we need to cautiously and consciously do in our engagements. The V is to verify, which is something that a lot of people unfortunately not doing. Verify the information that's in front of you. Research it, Google it if you have to, ask people what the situation is, whether it's got to do with religion, politics, sports, business, humanitarian work, whatever it is. Verify the information. You need to check for yourself if it's real or not. You can't just take everything at face value that's presented to you. And the final one is the E in love, is empathize. So put yourself in someone else's position, put yourself in someone else's shoes, and try and understand, if this person said this, did this, acted in this way, what are the reasons for that? Because you'll find most times people will say things, and once it's out of the mouth, it's too late to bring it back. But you'll find if you empathize, and you might realize this person has had a loss in the family, or this person has lost their job. You could get to a point where you're having a conversation and they are completely despondent and irritable. You need to empathize and say, okay, what was going through this person's mind? What was it that they were thinking about? What drove them to say or do what it is that they did, right or wrong? And then once you've taken all these concepts, LOV, and you place it together, that puts you in a better position to have a call that you have determined yourself. So you're not getting second-hand or third-hand information. This is something that you've come up with, and this is something that you can speak about and move forward in life. So I'd like for all South Africans to love each other and to practice the LOV doctrine. Because if we do that, a lot of these issues, there's certain stuff that I wouldn't have to be explaining because it's out there in the public as a reality, as an example, and as fact. And it's misconstrued for whatever reason. So we're in this together. It's going to be an interesting journey. It's going to be a wonderful journey. We're all going to pull this thing together. People should not be upset with the situation. We need to learn from the situation. We have to learn from the situation and understand that timing is of the essence. We don't have time. People want to speak like we have years and years to deal with the situation now. The time is now, and that's why we all need to get actively involved. We all need to be activists. Not everyone's going to be a politician, but we all need to be conscious of our surroundings and how things need to be done. We're going to win. That's what we do. We win all the time. And this time round, we're going to pull it together and we're going to come out with a victory as South Africa together.
With that note, thank you so much for joining us today. I know this was a very special interview.
Thank you very much.
To join us on the show. And we really appreciate it on behalf of GlowTV for making time, again, off your very busy schedule, to let our viewers know exactly what has been running through your minds. And you know, that is so important for us to have done so. And this interview, I hope it has done justice to that in every single way. So thank you so much, Mr. Zuma, and we wish you the very best in your future. It's lots of love from all our viewers to you.